Can you share your name and where do you live?
Oh, my name is Barbara Rose, and I live in San Diego, California.
And what do you do every morning?
I make sandwiches for the homeless.
More? So how many sandwiches do you make?
Usually 3 to 4 loaves. That means 33 to 44 sandwiches. I make half of them peanut butter and jelly, and half of them bologna and cheese. I go to some different stores where I can get the most for the money. And I just started buying the peanut butter at the Costco Business Center because I can buy a big 5-gallon tub.
And then where do you take the sandwiches once they're made?
Okay, I take them a couple of places. One are to the parks. That's my favorite place to take them. And the reason is very often I see a lot of the same people every day. And I get to meet them and learn about them and learn about their lives. And they tell me that I've had people say, "You've saved my life. I haven't had anything to eat for 2 days. You're the highlight of my day. These are the best sandwiches I've ever had in my whole life. You're an angel from heaven. How did you know where to find me?" And I have different people that sort of shine and were special to me. There was this one man, and I want to say an old man, but then he's probably was younger than me. And he had had a stroke, and he was a veteran. And I think it was by choice that he was homeless. He had an income of a couple of $1,000s a month, but he wanted to be and sleep out in the park. And he used his wheelchair to carry his things around. And I went up to him the first day, and he was sleeping. And I had decided when someone's sleeping in the park to wake them up. Because if I were hungry and I were sleeping, I'd like to be woken up, have something to eat, and then go back to sleep. And he said he really would love a bologna sandwich, but please don't wake him up anymore. And I said, fine. And every day I would leave a bologna sandwich right next to him as he slept in the park under this one particular tree. And one day, when I came to the park, he was standing up near the sidewalk where I was parking the car. And I said, "Oh, Alfred, it's so nice to see you. Nice to see you up." And he said, "Barbara, I'm so glad to see you. You're doing just this wonderful thing of giving sandwiches to the homeless." And I said, "Honestly, this is my joy. I really love doing this." And he said, "Well, here, I want to give you something." And he took out a wad of bills. And I said to him, "I don't need your money. I just don't need your money." And he said, "No, please take it. I'd feel better if you did." And he said, "I love that you're helping the homeless." And I said, "You help the homeless. You give it." And he said, "No, I want you to have it." And I said, okay. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. And I took the money and I put it in my pocket. And when I came home, I counted it. And it was $18. And it was like, oh my God. Hi. And the story has a sad ending in that he had another stroke out on the street and never saw him again. But there's just as many wonderful stories, I think, as there are homeless people out on the street. There was a woman that I met probably, a year ago, or close to a year ago, so I've only been doing this 11 months, but about 11 months ago. And we would say hi and communicate a little bit each day. And she finally said to me that she was pregnant. And I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." But in my heart, I wasn't thinking it was so wonderful because I didn't see that she was going to have a great future with her baby. And time went on, and when she found out it was going to be a little boy, and I gave her a blue baby blanket, and she was just so thrilled. It's like I gave her a whole layette. She was just thrilled that she had this wonderful blanket for her baby. And her plan at that time was she was going to take the baby to South Carolina. I think her family lived there. And she had the baby, and it didn't work out. She didn't go there. And then I saw her in the park, and she said they were going to be bringing the baby to her. And I have a feeling they never did, whoever they were. And then she said that social services were going to give her an apartment and she'd be able to have her baby. And that never happened. And the next I knew, she was going to a hearing because they were going to take away custody of the baby. I guess have the baby a ward of the state. And then she was arrested. You know, when you hear of somebody being arrested, you think, my gosh, what could they have done? Well, she was arrested for what's called encroachment. And in San Diego, there's a municipal code that I believe, and so do a number of attorneys, that this is unconstitutional. What it says is if you're on public property and you put something down on public property, you're encroaching. They use this for the homeless for putting their basket or their clothes or their blanket down. But the law is so vague that if I went there and I sat at a picnic table at the park and I put down a glass, that's encroachment. That's why it's unconstitutional, because it's so vague. And what they use this for is for the homeless. So they give a person a ticket for encroachment, municipal code violation. If the people, and the ticket says they have to appear. One, a lot of the people don't even know where court is. There's a bunch of different courts in the area. Two, how do they get there? Because if they go to court, all their things that they have are going to be taken. They lose everything. So they don't show. And then the same police person that gave them a ticket for encroachment comes back and arrests them for failure to appear. And they go to jail. I'm telling you, I have heard of at least 30 cases of this exact thing. And I know that there's many more than that. It's just a terrible thing. Terrible thing what happens to people that need a hand and instead are just pushed down and not cared for. And, you know, I've been asked about being afraid of going out with homeless people. And in the beginning, if someone looked different than me, I might have been afraid. I probably was. I remember one time this woman who I'm sure was having severe emotional problems, that she was taken aside by the police. And this wasn't at the park. This was at a shopping center. And she had wanted to go into Starbucks. Whether she was going in to go to the bathroom or that she wanted a cup of coffee, I don't know. But the police were talking to her, and she was saying, just let me go. Just leave me alone. I didn't do anything wrong. And I went up to her, and I said, would you like a sandwich? Now, the police are there, and they're trying to question her and trying to get control over her. And I gave her a sandwich. And it's like just the craziness of this life, of being on the street and never knowing who's there for you and if there's any help any place. There's a man that I've become very, very fond of who I have a feeling would be determined to be clinically depressed. And first I would say, who wouldn't be if you're living out on the street this long? But he would keep saying to me, Barbara, nobody likes me. Everybody's against me. And as time went on, I remembered a poem from when I was in, I think it was high school. It was If by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing yours and theirs and blaming it on you. And I thought, well, this would be a perfect thing. And so I gave that to him. And he loved it. He treasures it. And the next day he said, I read it 6 times. And he keeps telling me that he reads it every day. And some days when he comes to me and he says, nobody likes me, everybody's against me, I'll say, it's time for you to read the poem again. It's time to read the poem. And he has dreams of getting back together with his wife and getting back together with he's got 5 kids, 5 daughters. So that's his hope. But I don't know if that'll happen.
Can you talk a little bit about what being Jewish means in terms of this work? How does your Jewish identity connect with the fact that you started doing this and that you keep doing it?
For me, being Jewish means that I have an obligation to be ethical, to be fair, and to look out for my fellow man. And to turn my head or a blind eye wouldn't be being the kind of Jewish person that I want to be. And so my people love the idea that I make the sandwiches in my home. I've heard them say, this is really homemade, right? This is really homemade. And I said, yep, in my kitchen every morning. And I think once I realized that I could do something, that I could make a difference, then there was no way that I could turn my back. It's like my eyes were opened, and then comes the joy of doing it. I mean, this joy of making a difference, sandwich by sandwich. I change people's lives. 33 to 44 sandwiches a day, I change people's lives. They're just a little bit happier. Their tummy's just a little bit fuller. And, I promised myself when I started all I would do is sandwiches, and sometimes I make exceptions. One of them is, it's not unusual for people in the parks to be mugged. And so if they had an identity card or they had money, it's gone. And so I found a site online where I could get money belts. And so I got money belts, and anyone that I knew that had been mugged or injured or lost their ID because of that, their IDs, their bus pass, things like that, excuse me, I would give a money belt to. They need socks. And I mentioned this to my Maj group. Well, my gosh, I got a ton of socks. I keep them in the trunk of my car. But these are things that really mean something, I think, to the people. And that's the thing. They really are people. Caring, loving, giving. There was one day I gave 2 sandwiches to a woman. She said she was very hungry, and I gave her 2 sandwiches. And then I went around the park, and I came back, and one of my favorites, Carlos, who I give peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to whenever I see him, was there. He wasn't there when I came the first time, and he was there. And I said, oh, Carlos, I'm so sorry. I don't have any more sandwiches. And this woman said, wait, I have 2. Let me give you 1. And I mean, that was just beautiful. Just beautiful. And, you see that picture up there? That brown picture? that was drawn by Michael, one of my people in the park. Here, I'll move the flowers so you can see it. A homeless man. This is a pizza box. And that's all he had. And I gave him, after he gave me his picture, I gave him an artist pad and a bunch of colored pencils. But just what a special person. And that's what I see. That's what I see with the homeless people that I work with.